The message arrived on a Tuesday morning, appearing simultaneously on every screen, radio, and communication device across Earth. It wasn't static or interference. It was crystal clear, spoken in every human language at once. The voice was neither male nor female, neither warm nor cold, but carried an authority that made 7 billion people stop what they were doing and listen. People of Earth, it began. We are the Galactic Council. You have 30 days to prove you deserve to exist. Dr. Sarah Chun was drinking her morning coffee when her phone, laptop, and television all began broadcasting the same impossible message. Around the world, presidents interrupted meetings, children stopped playing, and even the busiest cities fell silent. The ultimatum was simple yet terrifying. Humanity had to demonstrate they could live in peace, protect their planet, and contribute something meaningful to the galaxy or face extinction. What the Galactic Council didn't expect was that humanity's answer would not only save them but change the entire cosmos forever. The full message lasted exactly 17 minutes. As the alien voice continued, holographic images appeared in the sky above every major city. Beings of impossible beauty and terror materialized in the clouds. Creatures with crystalline skin that reflected starlight, others with flowing energy where bodies should be, and some that looked almost human but moved like liquid mercury. We have watched your species for 3,000 of your years, the voice explained while the holograms shifted to show scenes from human history. We have seen your wars, your cruelty, your destruction of the very world that birthed you. We have also seen your capacity for love, creativity, and sacrifice. The question remains, which nature will define you? Sarah watched from her laboratory at MIT, where she had been working on sustainable energy solutions. Around her, graduate students and fellow researchers stood frozen, their experiments forgotten. The hologram showed Earth from space, beautiful and blue, but then zoomed in to reveal melting ice caps, burning forests, and polluted oceans. Many species have faced this test, the Council continued. Some chose the path of wisdom and joined our galactic community. Others. The images shifted to show barren worlds, dead civilizations, planets that had once been green but now floated as lifeless rocks in space. Others chose differently. The conditions were clear. Humanity had 30 days to, first, end all armed conflicts currently happening on Earth. Every war, every battle, every act of violence between nations had to stop. Second, begin healing their planet. They had to show measurable progress in cleaning their air, water, and land. Third, and most challenging, they had to prove they could contribute something unique and valuable to the galactic community. Something no other species had ever offered. 30 days, the voice repeated. Choose wisely. We will be watching. The holograms faded. The voice disappeared. Around the world, 7 billion people looked at each other and realized their fate hung in the balance. The first week was chaos. Stock markets crashed as people panicked. Some religious groups declared it the end times and prepared for Judgment Day. Governments held emergency sessions, but politicians who had spent decades arguing couldn't agree on what to do. Protests erupted in some cities while others saw mass prayer gatherings. Social media exploded with theories, fears, and conspiracy ideas. But something else happened too, something unexpected. In a small village in Kenya, a group of farmers decided they couldn't wait for their government to act. They put down their tools and walked to the neighboring village that had been feuding with them over water rights for decades. We need to end this, their leader said simply. Not for us, but for our children. In the Amazon rainforest, illegal loggers abandoned their chainsaws and joined local tribes in planting new trees. In Syria, soldiers on both sides of a long conflict laid down their weapons and started clearing rubble from destroyed hospitals instead. Sarah watched these developments from her lab, where she had been working around the clock. The third requirement, proving humanity's unique contribution, bothered her the most. What could humans offer that advanced alien civilizations hadn't already discovered? Her phone buzzed with a message from Dr. James Wright, a former colleague now working for the United Nations. Sarah, we need you in New York. Emergency Science Council. Can you catch the next flight? 6 hours later, Sarah sat in a room with the brightest minds on Earth. Physicists, biologists, philosophers, artists, and leaders from every field had been assembled. The UN Secretary-General looked exhausted as she addressed the group. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 23 days left. The good news is that conflicts are ending faster than we ever imagined possible. The bad news is we're still struggling with the other two requirements. A marine biologist from Australia spoke up. The ocean cleanup projects are showing progress, but it's not enough. We need something revolutionary. What about fusion energy? Suggested a physicist from Germany. If we could demonstrate clean, unlimited power. The technology isn't ready, Sarah replied. Even if we had a breakthrough tomorrow, we couldn't implement it globally in 3 weeks. An artist from Brazil raised her hand. Maybe we're thinking about this wrong. What if our contribution isn't scientific or technological? What if it's something else entirely? The room fell quiet. Sarah felt a spark of an idea, but it was too fragile to voice yet. By day 15, remarkable things were happening across the globe. The last active military conflict, a border dispute between two small nations, ended when soldiers from both sides met in the middle of a battlefield and started building a school together. Environmental restoration projects that should have taken years were completed in days as millions of volunteers worked together with a purpose they'd never felt before. Scientists shared research freely, breaking down decades of competition and secrecy. The most brilliant minds collaborated without worrying about patents or profits. In just 2 weeks, they made advances in clean energy, medicine, and environmental technology that might have taken decades under normal circumstances. But the third requirement still haunted everyone. Sarah hadn't slept properly in days. She wandered through Central Park at 3 a.m., trying to clear her mind. The city was quieter than she'd ever seen it. People seemed to move with more purpose, more kindness. Strangers helped each other without being asked. She saw a group of teenagers cleaning graffiti from a wall, while an elderly man taught them the history of the neighborhood. That's when it hit her. She ran back to her hotel and started making calls. James, I need you to set up another meeting, but not just with scientists this time. Get everyone, artists, teachers, children, grandparents, street musicians, farmers. Everyone. Sarah, it's 4 a.m. This can't wait. I think I know what makes us unique. The next evening, an unprecedented gathering took place. Not just in the UN building, but in thousands of locations around the world, connected by video links. Scientists sat next to poets. CEOs listened to janitors. Nobel Prize winners shared the stage with elementary school children. Sarah stood at the podium in New York, looking out at faces that represented all of humanity. The weight of their species' future pressed down on her, but she also felt something else. Hope. For the past 16 days, we've been trying to figure out what we can offer the galaxy, she began. We've thought about our technology, our art, our knowledge. But I think we've been missing the most important thing. She clicked to her first slide, a photo of the teenagers cleaning graffiti while the old man taught them history. This morning, I saw something that reminded me what makes us special. It's not our individual achievements. It's how we connect with each other, how we share stories, teach each other, and grow together. More slides appeared, images from around the world over the past 2 weeks. Enemies becoming friends, strangers helping strangers, children learning from elders, artists inspiring scientists, scientists teaching farmers. Every species in the galaxy probably has advanced technology. They likely have art, music, and literature. But I don't think any of them have what we have. What do we have? Asked a voice from the crowd. A child, maybe 10 years old. Sarah smiled. We have the ability to find hope in impossible situations. We have the power to change our minds, forgive our enemies, and start over. We're messy and imperfect, but we're also incredibly adaptable. We don't just survive, we help each other thrive. A woman from the video feed in Mumbai spoke up. But how is that useful to a galactic council? They want contributions, not philosophy. Because, Sarah continued, what if the galaxy needs exactly what we're offering? What if other species, for all their advancement, have forgotten how to change, how to forgive, how to hope? The room buzzed with conversation. Sarah could see people starting to understand. Think about it, she pressed on. The council gave us this test because they've seen our capacity for both destruction and love. Maybe they need species who understand both. Maybe they need healers. With only 5 days left, humanity began crafting their response. It wasn't a single invention or discovery. It was a proposal unlike anything the galaxy had ever heard. Sarah worked with teams around the world to document what they were calling the human gift. They filmed thousands of hours of footage showing human resilience, creativity, and compassion. They showed how humans could adapt to any environment, how they could find solutions in crisis, and most importantly, how they could change. But the real proposal was bigger than documentation. Humanity offered to become the galaxy's mediators, healers, and bridge builders. They proposed establishing human harmony centers throughout the galaxy, places where conflicts between species could be resolved, where different civilizations could learn to understand each other. We don't claim to be perfect, the proposal read. We've made terrible mistakes, but that's exactly why we can help others avoid them. We understand the path from hatred to love, from war to peace, from despair to hope. They backed up their words with action. The environmental restoration continued at an unprecedented pace. Conflicts remained resolved. But more importantly, humans were teaching each other. Schools reorganized their curricula to focus on empathy and understanding. Businesses restructured to prioritize helping over profit. Governments began actually cooperating. On day 30, exactly at noon Greenwich Mean Time, the sky filled with holograms once again. This time, the images showed not just the familiar council members, but hundreds of different alien species. Some looked like living music, others like geometric patterns that moved with intelligence. There were beings made of light, creatures that seemed to be living crystal formations, and others so alien that human minds could barely process their forms. People of Earth, the familiar voice returned, but now it seemed warmer, more interested. We have observed your progress. The hologram showed scenes from the past month, the ended conflicts, the environmental cleanup, the unprecedented global cooperation. You have exceeded our expectations in the first 2 requirements. No species in our records has achieved such rapid and complete transformation. But it is your 3rd offering that has given us pause. Sarah held her breath along with billions of others. In 12,000 years of galactic civilization, we have encountered 2,847 intelligent species. Of these, 1,923 have joined our council. Each brought technological advances, artistic innovations, or scientific discoveries. None have offered what you propose. The hologram shifted to show vast space stations, cities floating between stars, and technologies beyond human comprehension. Our civilization is ancient and advanced. We have solved the problems of energy, disease, and scarcity. We have mapped the cosmos and unlocked the secrets of reality itself. But, the voice continued, and something that might have been sadness crept into its tone. We have also grown static. For 1,000 years, there have been no new ideas, no creative breakthroughs, no fundamental changes in how we understand existence. We have achieved perfection, and in doing so, we have lost the ability to grow. The images showed pristine alien cities with beings going through beautiful but repetitive motions, like a dance performed for centuries without variation. Your species offers something we thought was lost forever: the chaos of change, the pain and joy of transformation, the messy but vital process of becoming something new. "We accept your proposal," the council announced, and the words echoed across every corner of Earth. But then came the surprise that would change everything. "However, we offer you something in return. We invite humanity not just to join the Galactic Council, but to help us remember what we have forgotten. We want to learn from you as much as we want to teach you." The holograms showed incredible scenes. Human ambassadors walking through alien cities, teaching alien children how to play games that had no predetermined outcomes. Human artists collaborating with beings of pure energy to create forms of beauty that had never existed. Human scientists not just learning alien technology, but showing aliens how to dream of things that didn't yet exist. "Your first assignment," the council continued, "should you choose to accept it, will be to help us resolve a conflict that has lasted 3,000 years. Two of our oldest member species have reached an impasse that our traditional methods cannot solve. They need what you call a fresh perspective." Sarah felt tears streaming down her face. Around the world, humans were laughing, crying, and hugging each other. They had not only survived the test, they had become teachers to civilizations that had existed for millennia. 6 months later, Sarah stood on the observation deck of the first Human Harmony Center, orbiting a planet in the Andromeda system. Through the transparent walls, she could see two alien species that had been at war for 3 millennia sitting together in a circle, with human mediators helping them find common ground. The conflict had seemed impossible to resolve. The crystalline collective communicated through harmonic frequencies, while the void dancers existed partially outside normal spacetime. They couldn't even perceive each other properly, let alone understand their disagreement over mining rights in a solar system where both had ancient claims. But humans had done something no one expected. They had created art. Working with both species, human artists had developed a new form of expression that existed simultaneously in sound and in the spaces between dimensions. For the first time in 3,000 years, the two species could share a common experience. And in that sharing, they found not just understanding, but friendship. "It's working," Dr. Wright said, joining Sarah at the observation window. He had left his UN position to become the first director of interspecies relations. "The council is amazed. They're requesting harmony centers in 17 different systems." Sarah nodded, watching as a young human teacher showed an alien child, if that was the right word for a being made of living mathematics, how to finger paint. The child's equations shifted into bright colors and impossible shapes, while the human laughed with delight. "You know what the best part is?" Sarah said. "What?" "We're not just changing them. They're changing us too." It was true. Humans living and working with aliens were developing new ways of thinking, new forms of creativity, new understandings of what it meant to be alive. Children born on the Harmony Centers were growing up trilingual in languages that included mathematics, music, and pure emotion. Back on Earth, the changes continued to accelerate. The planet was healing faster than anyone had dared hope. With access to alien technology and the collaborative spirit born from the 30-day crisis, humans had not only stopped environmental damage but had begun actively restoring ecosystems. Extinct species were being brought back through genetic resurrection techniques shared by alien biologists. The oceans were cleaner than they had been in centuries. But the most remarkable change was in human society itself. The cooperative spirit that had emerged during the crisis had become permanent. Not because people were forced to cooperate, but because they had tasted what was possible when they worked together. Wars didn't just end. The idea of war began to seem as outdated as using leeches for medicine. Countries still existed, but their borders had become more like cultural preservation areas than barriers. People moved freely, sharing knowledge and resources as needed. The global economy had restructured itself around contribution and creativity rather than competition and scarcity. Sarah received regular reports from her colleagues around the galaxy. Humanity's influence was spreading far beyond what anyone had imagined. Ancient alien civilizations were rediscovering creativity they thought they had lost. Species that had been static for millennia were beginning to evolve again, not biologically, but culturally and spiritually. The Galactic Council itself was changing. For the first time in recorded history, they were debating new ideas, questioning old assumptions, and even laughing. Human humor, it turned out, was as revolutionary as human hope. 2 years after the ultimatum, Sarah found herself back in the UN building in New York. But this time the meeting was very different. Representatives from 47 alien species sat alongside human delegates, working together to plan the next phase of galactic development. The agenda was ambitious, establishing a new type of civilization that valued growth over perfection, questions over answers, and the messy beauty of change over the sterile safety of stagnation. The Harmony Centers are exceeding all expectations, reported Ambassador Zrentai, a being whose thoughts appeared as shifting geometric patterns in the air. Conflicts that we thought would last forever are being resolved in months. But more importantly, we are remembering how to dream. A human child named Marcus, who had been born on one of the centers and spoke fluent crystalline, raised his hand. "Can I ask something?" The entire assembly, beings from across the galaxy, turned to listen to an 8-year-old human. Why did it take so long for everyone to talk to each other? Like, really talk? The question hung in the air for a moment. Sarah saw alien delegates exchanging glances, or the equivalent for species without eyes. Finally, Elder Kathayame of the first civilization spoke, their voice like distant thunder. "We had forgotten that wisdom is not the absence of questions, young one. We had convinced ourselves that having answers meant we had stopped needing to grow." Marcus nodded seriously. "That sounds lonely." "It was," the elder admitted. "Very lonely." 5 years after the ultimatum, the galaxy was unrecognizable. What had once been a static confederation of ancient civilizations had become a dynamic community of species learning from each other. The rigid hierarchy of the old Galactic Council had given way to a more fluid system where wisdom could come from anywhere, from the newest member species to the oldest civilizations, from the most advanced technologies to the simplest insights. Humans served as catalysts throughout this transformation, but they were no longer the only agents of change. Species that had been locked in ancient patterns were now teaching each other new ways of thinking. The galaxy had become a vast learning laboratory where every interaction was an opportunity for growth. Sarah, now in her 50s, served as the first human member of what was now called the Galactic Learning Council. She split her time between Earth and a magnificent space station that existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously, designed collaboratively by 17 different species who had learned to blend their unique perspectives. The station was itself a work of art and of hope. Corridors that sang with the harmonic frequencies of the crystalline collective led to gardens where human flowers grew alongside plants that existed as pure thought forms. Libraries contained books made of light, music composed of mathematics, and stories told through gravitational waves. "The transformation report is ready," announced Arya, an artificial intelligence that had been created through collaboration between human programmers and a species that existed as living data. Arya's voice came from everywhere and nowhere, warm and musical. "What does it show?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer would be remarkable. "In 5 years, we've seen more innovation, artistic creation, and peaceful conflict resolution than in the previous 1,000 years of galactic history. The introduction of human adaptive thinking has triggered what we're calling a Renaissance cascade throughout known space." The holographic display showed the statistics. 847 previously unsolvable problems resolved, 23,000 new forms of art created, 156 species that had been isolated for centuries now actively participating in galactic culture, and most importantly, 0 military conflicts. But the most significant change wasn't in the numbers, it was in something that couldn't be quantified. During a routine meditation session that had become part of human-alien diplomatic training, Sarah experienced something that would reshape galactic understanding forever. She was practicing with members of the Void Dancers, learning to perceive existence from their perspective of existing partially outside normal spacetime. Suddenly, she felt a presence, vast, ancient, and benevolent. It wasn't one of the known species. It was something else entirely. "We have been waiting," the presence communicated, not in words but in pure understanding that bypassed language entirely. Waiting for the galaxy to remember how to grow. Around the meditation circle, all the participants, human and alien alike, felt the presence simultaneously. Sarah realized she was in contact with something that existed at a level beyond individual species, beyond even the concept of civilization as they understood it. "What are you?" she asked, though she somehow already knew the answer would change everything. "We are what you will become," came the reply. "Not humans, not any single species, but consciousness itself learning to transcend its limitations." The galaxy was static because it had lost the ability to reach the next level of existence. "You have reminded it how to climb." The presence showed them visions of what was possible. Civilizations that existed across multiple dimensions simultaneously, forms of consciousness that could create and explore realities beyond current imagination, communities of beings that had learned to think collectively while maintaining individual creativity. "This is why the test was necessary," the presence continued. "Not to judge whether humanity deserved to exist, but to see if you could help the galaxy remember its potential." When Sarah and her meditation partners shared their experience with the Galactic Learning Council, it sparked the most intense debate in recorded history. For months, representatives from thousands of species discussed what they had learned. The presence, which they came to call the next step, had offered them a choice. They could continue developing as they were, exploring the galaxy and slowly expanding their understanding. Or they could attempt something unprecedented, a conscious evolution of galactic civilization itself. The second path was dangerous. It would require unprecedented cooperation, the willingness to change in fundamental ways, and the acceptance that they might fail completely. But if they succeeded, they would become something entirely new, a form of existence that could explore realities beyond their current understanding. "It's the ultimate test," Sarah said during one of the debates. "Not just of our species, but of consciousness itself. Can we learn to transcend our limitations?" Elder Kathe M.A., who had become one of Sarah's closest collaborators, pulsed with thoughtful energy. "In my species' entire history, we have never faced such a decision. We have always chosen safety over growth." "What about now?" asked Marcus, who at 13 had become the youngest member of the council by demonstrating insights that spanned species barriers. The elder's form shimmered with what Sarah had learned to recognize as deep emotion. "Now we have learned that safety without growth is not life. It is merely existence." The decision, when it came, was unanimous. Not because everyone agreed, there were passionate debates and genuine fears, but because the process itself had taught them something crucial. They had learned to make decisions collectively while respecting individual perspectives, to move forward together while honoring dissent, to take risks while caring for each other. The transformation began on a Tuesday morning, exactly 7 years after the original ultimatum. This time, instead of receiving a message, the galaxy sent one. Using communication networks that spanned thousands of civilizations, billions of conscious beings participated in a simultaneous meditation, opening their minds to the possibility of becoming something greater than themselves. Sarah sat in the great meditation chamber of the learning station, surrounded by friends who existed in forms ranging from crystalline patterns to pure energy to probability clouds. As they began the process, she felt the familiar sensation of her consciousness expanding, but this time it didn't stop at the boundaries of her individual mind. She felt herself connecting not just with the beings around her, but with consciousness throughout the galaxy. Not losing her individuality, but adding it to a vast symphony of awareness that was somehow both collective and personal. The transformation took 7 hours and 7 minutes. When it was complete, the galaxy had become something unprecedented. A conscious entity made up of billions of individual minds, each maintaining their unique perspective while contributing to a greater understanding. What they discovered in their new state of existence was beyond anything they had imagined. Reality, they learned, was far more flexible and creative than they had ever suspected. The physical universe was just one layer of a vast, multidimensional tapestry of possibilities. As a conscious collective that maintained individual creativity, they could not only explore these other dimensions but participate in their creation. They found other galaxies that had achieved similar transformations, each bringing unique perspectives to the growing community of conscious existence. They discovered that consciousness itself was evolving throughout the universe, and their own transformation was part of a cosmic process of awakening. But perhaps most remarkably, they learned that the journey was just beginning. "We thought the test was about proving we deserve to exist," Sarah reflected during one of their collective communications that spanned dimensions. But it was really about learning to help existence itself grow. Her individual voice was still her own, but now it harmonized with billions of others in a symphony of consciousness that could explore realities beyond imagination while never losing the individual creativity and hope that had made it possible. Marcus, now existing as a pattern of pure curiosity that could manifest across multiple dimensions simultaneously, added his perspective. "I think the universe is like a really big kid learning how to grow up, and we're helping it figure out how." 10 years after the ultimatum, Sarah sometimes returned to her individual human form and visited Earth. The planet was more beautiful than ever, not just healed, but actively participating in the cosmic process of conscious evolution. Children were born who could think in multiple dimensions from birth. Artists created works that existed across realities. Scientists didn't just study the universe, they collaborated with it to explore new possibilities for existence itself. But the most important thing hadn't changed. Humans still helped each other. They still hoped when things seemed impossible. They still found ways to grow, to forgive, to love, and to become more than they had been before. And across the universe, in dimensions that had no names and realities that defied description, consciousness itself continued to evolve, driven forward by the simple but revolutionary human insight that had saved not just one species, but existence itself. The willingness to change, the courage to hope, and the understanding that growth never ends. The Galactic Council had issued an ultimatum thinking they were testing one small species on one small planet. Instead, they had triggered the next phase of cosmic evolution itself. And it was just the beginning. ND.